In less than half a year, Animal Crossing New Horizons has made a bigger difference in my life than any other game I've ever played. When I started this channel over 3 years ago, I knew that if a new mainline Animal Crossing game were to come out, I was going to make a video that would give it the respect and love that it deserves. But looking over the past months, seeing how my town has grown and developed, and with it inspiring changes in my personal style, this series, has made a bigger difference to me than I ever could have imagined. I started playing Animal Crossing consistently in the early 2010s, starting with the GameCube version, then moving on to New Leaf, while eventually collecting all the rest. I loved those older games, and Animal Crossing for the GameCube was one of the first video games I really became attached to. I mean, I built friendships in that game. I found others intimidating. I saw fireworks shows, I made clothes, I gardened, though 10 years later I could probably use a bit of TLC, but I lived a life in that game. And though with a much different outcome, it sort of happened again in New Leaf. Animal Crossing New Leaf was a game that had a lot of opportunities for customization. You could change the look of your town, easily create a theme, and be inspired by a wonderful community. It introduced me to the creative process, and it was what led me to creating the first internet content I ever posted. What Nintendo has made is a game that not only gives me freedom, but freedom to create. Freedom to build a world with characters and stories and relationships, freedom to build it, rebuild it, and watch it evolve as my skills get better. Because as much as I could write and film an 11-page essay about all of the different features of New Horizons, and trust me, I did, it wouldn't really capture how important this game is to me and to so many other people. Because as I came to realize, Animal Crossing isn't just a game, it's an art form. For years, Animal Crossing has been a series about creativity. Sure, it could be called a life simulator, and for many it is, but there's also a strong community who sees the games differently. Every title has unique items and unique features that inspire design, and even years after most have stopped playing or caring about the game, these people are still coming up with new ideas and building their town to perfection. In art, Animal Crossing is what you would call the medium, essentially the material that you're using to create. And every medium has its own upsides and downsides. Traditional art, for example, is great if you like mixing materials, and it offers a lot of great options. But you can't exactly say, oops, I messed up, and then take a pink eraser to your acrylic paint. Digital art, on the other hand, may be more easily fixable, but it isn't always intuitive. See the user interface for most Adobe products. Luckily for us, Animal Crossing is a very welcoming game to players both new and old, and with a community that loves to inspire, it's easy to get started and sometimes even know what kind of town you want to make. Plus, with a strong feature set, it's not too difficult to make the town of your dreams. Actually, let's talk about that. So, Animal Crossing New Horizons is a major step up from previous titles in 3 major ways: customization, furniture placement, and terraforming. Let's start with customization. One of the things it seems Nintendo has put a heavy focus on with New Horizons is the ability to change things however you'd like to fit your style. Previously, this could only be done through Cyrus's service in New Leaf and took 30 minutes for every furniture item. Now it takes about 15 seconds, and you can do it wherever you put a crafting table. Granted, item customization is very often limited to things you craft or buy from specific areas, so collecting all the colors of every item is still a huge undertaking. After all, no medium is perfect. Next is furniture placement, and this might have been the biggest new feature for most people's towns, or at least it was for mine. For the first time in a mainline Animal Crossing game, you can set down any piece of furniture you like outside, not just ones limited to public works projects like in New Leaf. On top of that, every block in the grid that you use to create your town can be split in half, so furniture can be moved to the exact position you want it. And going along with this theme of exterior customization, terraforming is a thing now. And it's a very important thing. Nintendo, you have spoiled me. Please do not ever take this away. Terraforming can be done in 3 different ways: cliff design, water design, and path design. Want to make your island look like an elevated maze? Have at it. Want to level everything and design on flat ground? Go ahead, the possibilities are almost endless. You can create all different kinds of rivers and waterfalls and just add an element of interest to the cliffs and ground if you so choose. And Nintendo gives you several path options to choose from with the ability to place custom design paths if you choose to as well. Again, the possibilities are almost endless. And I say almost because there are some limits to how well these things work. For example, you can't make a 2-space wide cliff fully rounded, it has to be at least 3 spaces. And while you can build 3 cliffs high, creating a total of 4 levels, that 4th and top level is, for the most part, inaccessible. You can't place anything on it, so it ends up being blank. Even the water terraforming can't get up there. And speaking of water terraforming, that's also a bit odd at points too. You can close a waterfall by just standing in front of it and pressing A, but you can't add a waterfall by doing the same thing. Instead, you need to get a ladder or stairs up to the next level and then go from there. This all happens, however, while the player is keeping in mind that things like trees always need to be 1 space away from terraforming on all sides to be able to grow. It's a lot to keep track of, but at least you can work around it. The game gives you so many options, choices for customization, and most importantly, the chance to make your vision come to life. What do you want your town to be? For some, it's a difficult question to answer. It might just be a home away from home, where you and your in-game players share many of the same qualities and go about your life. That's awesome. Others might choose to create characters and write a story for them, letting the town theme fall into place with it. Great! Whichever way you choose, you can make it happen. That said, the vision phase is where a lot of Animal Crossing designers can get stuck. You're given this massive empty island and almost infinite possibilities of what you can do with it. It's a lot to take in, and sometimes it takes a while to figure out what exactly to even do. Now, I can't speak for all players on their experiences, but I can at least share the story I know best, my own. For any of you that haven't seen my 3-part series Founders from earlier this year, the town I created is called Azimuth, or one of the measurements used to calculate the location of an object in the sky. Archer, the island representative, is a reference to the Sagittarius constellation, and any characters that follow will probably end up being named in a similar fashion. Following this theme, Azimuth is a blend between forest and celestial, the goal being to combine the two cohesively, and for the most part, I think I'm getting there. I didn't start Azimuth with a very specific plan, but I did start with an idea of style, and sometimes that's all you need. I knew that I really wanted to dive into a fantasy theme, but as I progressed through the game, I discovered that I also enjoy a rustic, more cottage-like style, so I tossed that into the mix too. It's okay to start the game without a specific idea, because thanks to a wonderful community of Animal Crossing designers, there's a lot of time and chances to get inspiration and find something that works for you. A lot of art can seem really daunting at first, but thankfully the Animal Crossing community, or at least the parts that I've been in, is really good about supporting all kinds of creators and bouncing around ideas. And that definitely played a role in Azimuth's creation. While I may have known what style I was going for and sort of how to make it happen, I certainly wouldn't have gotten as far as I did in that town if it hadn't been for the wonderful people online. But there's a difference between being inspired and actually creating, and while both are equally fun, the latter takes quite a bit more work than the former. That said, actually creating the art is also incredibly rewarding. For a lot of people, art is considered to be the final thing the viewer sees. But what if the process is the art itself, and the final product is just secondary? This idea is sort of the foundation of a movement called process art. It's almost like 2 types of art within a single work. The finished artwork, of course, is one, but the process it took is the other. Animal Crossing could also be considered process art, just in a very unique way. First, there are a lot of things to consider when you're building a town. How do I want to use plants, cliffs, water, public works projects, or furniture to make my vision come true? What's the layout? Do I want to section off my town to different areas or just let it all be cohesive? Depending on the style you're looking for, the answers to these questions will change. Let's use Azimuth as an example. My goal, besides having a celestial forest theme, was to make every place as picturesque as possible. I wanted the viewer to be able to take out the Nook phone camera in any spot and have it be gorgeous. To do that and allow for a good photo composition, I knew I was going to need verticality in almost every area of town, be it trees, cliffs, or waterfalls. Working with the original map I was given, I began to build the basis for the sections in my town, adding height wherever I could. You could even see the evolution of the map over time, adding visual interest by adjusting the cliff lines until Azimuth had an intriguing layout. With that done, I wanted to think about how to actually fit it all in. My goal was to make architecture a big part of it and to fit things in nicely with the cliffs that I had been building. You can see that especially with houses like Nate's, where it fits in with its surroundings but also stands out because of its admittedly unexpected placement. Filling in flowers and furniture, while it was a little bit of a hassle, I'm telling you my pockets are always full, was fun as well, and it let me craft different types of gardens to fit with my theme. For example, Azimuth's gardens encapsulate different parts of the sky, and it's fun to use special and hybrid flowers in a new way. Much is the same with furniture, and with so many options to choose from, placing furniture outside is integral to a great New Horizons town. But the beauty of Animal Crossing is all the things you don't see behind the scenes. It's the trying, retrying, being satisfied, then rebuilding the same area 2 months later. It's the times when you have no idea what or how you want to terraform, but after a while it just comes together and creates a new beautiful area. Azimuth looked totally different when I started making this video, and that's because I constantly have a lot of ideas and enjoy playing around with New Horizons features. I don't necessarily know what the finished product will look like, but I'll get there eventually. And while it's amazing to see a quote-unquote completed town, the idea of Animal Crossing is that it's always evolving and getting better with every new update and every new season. By that point, the town is just as artistic as the process it took to get there, and it all creates a really unique effect. I mentioned earlier in this video that the Animal Crossing community was a massive one, and that I wouldn't have been able to get to the point that I am now without them. I've been in the community since 2016, before I even started making YouTube content, and back then it was a really interesting time to be there. Most people who had been diligently playing New Leaf since 2013 just ran out of things to do, leaving the community, at least from what I could tell, in the hands of the artists. I wasn't an artist, but I thought they were really cool, and the first content I ended up posting to the internet was on my Animal Crossing WordPress blog that you all know now as Founders. Being in that community at the time I joined taught me patience. We got Happy Home Designer and Pocket Camp, sure, but this was still at a time where we thought the next mainline Animal Crossing game would be on the Wii U. But it all paid off immensely, and not just for me, but for every Animal Crossing player. It has been amazing to see the reaction to New Horizons, both in sales and audience reception. Nintendo's earnings from May 7th, 2020 noted that, quote, Animal Crossing New Horizons, released in March, sold 11.77 million units, which is now the best start ever for a Nintendo Switch title. Beyond that, their August 6th 3-month earning report also said, quote, titles released in previous fiscal years have also continued to sell well, with Animal Crossing New Horizons at the top of the list, with sales of 10.63 million units for cumulative sales of 22.40 million units. Sales of this title continue to be strong with no loss of momentum, contributing greatly to the overall growth in software sales, end quote. And while to some extent that sounds a bit like legalese, it can be shortened to sales really good, and rightfully so, because Animal Crossing, especially as an art form, has fostered a community like no other I've ever seen, and the outpouring of love upon the game's launch has been incredible. And I think, at least for me, it's really rewarding. It wasn't all that long ago that people thought I was weird for putting so much effort into this kids game, but now a lot of them understand why. And the work that I did 4 or 5 years back in New Leaf paid off because it prepared me for the kinds of things I'm working on now, both in and out of game. This is the gateway. Animal Crossing is an art form in and of itself, but it has the interesting ability to take the player down multiple paths, helping them to find their creative outlet. To demonstrate, let's use pixel art as an example. It seems simple enough until you actually have to do it. Pixel artists are put in a very unique position because they have to figure out how to create beautiful pieces in a limited medium. In pixel art, you have to think closely about every shape you draw and every decision you make. But a successful piece can master elements of composition, and whether you choose to draw paths, paintings, or clothes, the things you learn from pixel art might inspire you to learn to draw. Or let's say house design. Interior design is a huge part of the house, as any HGTV watcher will know. Working with your Animal Crossing house can give you a lot of ideas on what your style is like. Do you prefer modern or vintage? What colors blend well together? What kinds of materials and textures work to give you a cohesive room? They're all questions you get to answer. And for me, the way I styled my Animal Crossing house inspired some of the sets that I even have shown in videos, like this one. Even this video was created with many clips from the Animal Crossing camera. As the game progressed, I got better with creating good compositions, having intriguing lighting, and using the right effects to make my photos pop. Some people might be overwhelmed by the sheer amount of how much there is to do in New Horizons, but it also gives you a lot of opportunities to figure out what you enjoy. And you might even pursue it outside of the game too. But I know that I wouldn't be where I am today pursuing a career in content creation had it not been for Animal Crossing. Whether you consciously think about it or not, working in that game and being part of that community can teach you a lot. And in regards to Nintendo, I couldn't be happier with the direction they're taking this game. Sure, it might not be perfect, but the constant updates and additions not only strategically brings players back, but adds more options into an already ever-developing medium. And the fact that the company really seems to be listening to its customers is incredibly promising, should we keep this game for as long as we did with New Leaf. And whether you're an artist or someone who just likes playing the game, I hope it inspires you to create, to find what you enjoy doing and what you want to contribute to the world, just as it did for me. Thanks for watching.